Today I'm with James Danckert, and we're going to ask him some questions to get to know him a little bit more. So, James, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi. You just introduced me myself already. So I'm James Danckert. I'm a cognitive neuroscientist in the psychology department at University of Waterloo.
Awesome. All right, we'll just get straight into the question. So, the first big question I wanted to ask is, what was the first thing that sparked your interest in psychology as a whole?
Yeah, I think I remember a lecture by Michael Saling, a prof at the University of Melbourne when I was doing my undergraduate in second year. And it's a lecture that a lot of psychology students will be aware of. It's the lecture on Phineas Gage, and how this guy had a tamping iron go through his skull and managed to miraculously survive it, but somehow his personality had changed.
Oh,
Um,
yes,
and
yes.
I think at that point I was hooked. I said it was really interesting stuff, and so that was probably the first point that I thought, yeah, this is really interesting stuff, and I think I might want to pursue it.
Awesome. And that was look at the how it sparked your interest, but how about now? Would you like to describe the area that you research currently?
I do two kinds of research programs. One is to look at mental model updating. And that is that there's too much information out there in the world for us to represent everything. We can't possibly do it. There's so much there and it's changing constantly. So we create these mental models or mental representations that condense that information and allow us to use it in actionable ways to guide our decisions and our behaviors. The other research program that I do more of is boredom. And so I'm interested in the experience of boredom and the individual trait propensity to experience boredom, what we call boredom proneness. And so we look at that from a range of different ways. We do survey research looking at the individual differences that make up a boredom-prone person. So things like, poor self-control, poor self-regulation. We look at behavioral studies. So we look at performance on sustained attention tasks and decision-making tasks where boredom-prone people tend to struggle. We do some neuroimaging. So we've used EEG and fMRI to try and look at the neural signature associated with boredom. And we also I've got a collaboration with a colleague at the University of Toronto where we're looking at the genetic profile associated with boredom proneness. So we look at it from lots of different angles. And those are the two main research programs that I have.
That's awesome. And especially when it comes to the whole boredom thing, I think that's a very interesting topic because I mean, that's essentially universal. I think everybody feels boredom in some sort of way or another. So very interesting. And to kind of transition into more, I guess, more about your personal life, I wanted to ask, what do you think is the most notable or interesting place that you've ever lived and why it was interesting?
So I spent 4 months living in Lyon, France, and I was doing a sort of very short stint as a postdoctoral fellow with a guy called Yves Rossetti. The work was interesting there, but the town is fascinating. It's got old ancient Roman ruins in it. It's got some Gallo-Roman ruins as well. So, very old sort of structures there. It's got Roman baths and an amphitheater. And you wouldn't necessarily think of a town like that as having those things. It has a rich history. So it was one of the points in Europe where silk was developed and silk weaving was developed. And so they have all these things in Lyon called traboules and miraboules that are these underground passages for transporting silk, because you didn't want to transport the silk out in the weather if it was raining or something like that. And those passageways were then used by the French resistance during World War II. And it has other sort of rich history to it. So film was developed in Lyon. The Frères Lumière, the brothers Lumière, were the first people to film something. They filmed themselves standing outside of a train station. It's not a really interesting, probably pretty boring movie. But yeah, so it's just a beautiful city, has a lot of rich history and really interesting things to do. And I really loved my time there. It was a great place to live.
Yeah, that's quite fascinating how something that was originally used for transporting silk was also utilized in a war.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite interesting. And I think finally, the last question I wanted to ask is, what are some hobbies that you get really passionate about? And you can list as many as you want.
Right. Well, you can see some instruments on the back wall there. Some of that's a bit of a lie. Like the trombone is my youngest son's, and that doesn't get played. And then the ukulele is my wife's. But I play guitar, so I quite enjoy playing guitar. I've done that since I was about 12 or 13. I don't play other people's songs much. I tend to write my own songs, and so I've written a lot of songs in my time and enjoy doing that. I don't perform, which is probably a shame, but I don't really care that much. The songs are just sort of for me mostly. I enjoy drawing as well. I don't have any good. Well, there's an example of a bored kid
Oh, very
here.
nice.
And so I don't spend as much time doing that as I would like. It's something that I want to get back into a little bit more. And yeah, in the summers, my wife and I like to sail a bit. So I don't know if that's a hobby or just like a fun thing to do. But yeah, those are the kinds of things that I enjoy doing when I've got spare time.
Yeah, and back to the guitar thing, even though you don't perform or whatever, I truly think that the best hobbies are ones that you can just have for yourself, because then a hobby is mostly just for enjoyment. So definitely
Sure.
agree.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for taking the time out of your day to answer some questions. It was lovely meeting you.
Yeah. Nice to meet you too.
All right.